Welcome back, everybody. Year 4 is officially over here in this NBA expansion series. The Aztecs fell in Game 6 at the hands of the Trailblazers, and we lost in 6 games in the Western Conference Finals. And in that game, we saw John Cobb pick up an injury that really hampered his ability to play defense and offense as well. It was a sore ankle picked up in the first half of Game 6. And his ratings all went down, and he had his worst shooting day of perhaps the entire year, going 3 for 20 and a 1 for 10 from downtown. And Portland won 3 games in a row, 2 of which were very, very winnable for us in the last couple of minutes. But regardless, he is now fully healthy. Obviously, it was only a couple-day injury, but it really hampered his ability to get back on defense and play man-on-man defense and even shoot the ball, it seems. Now, I do want to address a couple of comments that I've already kind of responded to in the comment section from last episode, but I tried to take John Cobb out late. I did take him out. I called a timeout to bring in Kevin Huerter instead, and that, actually kind of worked. We tied the game and made things very, very close, but we had 2 timeouts left after that with, I think, over 3 minutes left to go, and I don't think it makes that much sense to waste our timeouts at every dead ball to bring in Cobb. Now, I could have, in hindsight, I guess, paused the game and tried to sub him in at the next dead ball every time that there was a dead ball and keep Cobb out of the lineup, but to me, that is just a bit too much micromanagement. Now, if we do that, we for sure had a way better chance of winning that game and forcing Game 7, but I'm not really one to micromanage to that level. I think I am micromanaging already by having a very specific rotation and having our game plan set up for the most part. Now, I don't usually game plan for specific teams like the Portland Trailblazers or the Mavericks prior to that, because that usually gives us an extra edge over the CPU that we would normally have. I would rather rely on what our coach wants to do to figure that out. So that's kind of my thought process there. I am not aware of any method to take somebody fully out of our rotation in the middle of a game if they pick up one of those non-serious injuries. So if somebody does know how to do that, let me know, because that would be helpful going forward if we experience this again in the future. But besides having hindsight and being able to sub out Cobb at every dead ball, which I wasn't really willing to do in the first place, I'm not really aware of any other way for us to have avoided what happened in that game. But regardless, the year's over. I think that we did deserve to lose, to be honest with you, regardless of Cobb's injury. And I think Portland was the better team for the better part of this series, which is why they won in 6 games. But the year's over, and I think there aren't going to be too many moves for us to make in this offseason, mainly because we have the core in place. I think that guys like John Cobb and David Dennis and Kylan Moore, the young core of this team, are really going to improve in the player progression stage this offseason. We've also got Dylan Young, who became the starter, halfway through our season, and I think played pretty well for most of the playoffs. And we have a couple of veteran players like James Wiseman, who's only like 27 years old. Mark Williams also battling with Wiseman for that kind of backup center job. And we've got Rozier off the bench. Max Christie, who I think is probably one of the first players on the chopping block for the roster in this offseason. But also with Dalton Connect. What do we do about him? He really fell off and just was not good in a couple of games in a really important stretch in the regular season, and we had to pretty much take him out of our lineup completely once the playoffs came around. So I think we're going to look to move on from him. He was on the last year of his deal anyways. Max Christie was, I think, signed to a 1-year extension, but this might be the last year on his deal too. Rozier still under contract, but 34 years old. How much will he regress this season? So we'll look for a couple of small moves. I'll definitely look to improve shooting guard off the bench for us and get a player better than Christie or Kevin Huerter who can really be a good backup to Cobb, both off the bench and in case Cobb gets hurt, and then we'll go from there. But I do think that the foundation for this team is set with those young players that I already mentioned. Jarris Walker's been a great piece for us this year, so I think he's going to be a big part of our future too. And now I guess we'll jump right into the official offseason period as we head into the 5th season in this expansion series. I did mention at the end of last episode, by the way, that I probably will be condensing the time that we spent in the regular season to only a couple of episodes. I mentioned 2 or 3. I'm probably going to end up doing about 4. So probably 2 before the All-Star break and 2 as we approach the postseason. And that will just give us about a week to a week and a half to go through a full regular season and then jump into the playoffs and focus more on that. I also do want to condense the playoffs a little bit more. So I will likely expect episodes to run a bit longer, but to have less episodes to round out a full season. So that's my game plan going forward. I still have to figure out how to actually format that in a way where we can have a lot of info and still know a lot about this team. But because we have no draft picks this year, we have a lack of new young players coming into our team, and we already have the young core in place. I think it makes less sense to focus on the regular season as much as we have them, because now we know who these players are. It's more about where can we take this young core in the playoffs, because we're probably going to be a playoff team for the next several years to come, unless things really fall off the rails. So, diving in, the player retirements. Kevin Durant, after 20 years, has retired, alongside DeMar DeRozan, Tobias Harris, Jimmy Butler, Vucevic, Drummond, Bradley Beal, Schroeder, Gobert, Lillard. A lot of probably Hall of Fame candidates on this list. So we'll see what ends up happening. And Rozier actually is going to retire. So that will give us the option to find a better backup point guard. Rozier was pretty good for us, but had a couple of games where he really was not impactful. So that will give us another hole to fill. And that's the only player for us that is retiring. I also completely forgot until now that we actually have a new team coming in to the league, to the Eastern Conference. It's going to be the Baltimore Blue Crabs. I believe we have to wait until after the league meetings to officially decide that and have the expansion draft. But that's going to be coming up here soon too, so we have to protect a couple of players, obviously. What about Hall of Fame inductees? You got Kevin Durant and Dame only, but you'll probably see a few more guys pop in here in a couple years. But KD, Dame, obviously both well-deserving of Hall of Fame spots. So those legends have officially had their jerseys hung up in the rafters. And they will have number 0 and number 35 retired for their respective long-term teams. In league meetings, we will, of course, approve the league expansion to adding one new team to the NBA. That will, of course, be the Blue Crabs, who I just mentioned a few seconds ago. So in league realignments, the only change is going to be adding the Blue Crabs to the Atlantic Division alongside the Celtics, Sixers, Knicks, Nets, and Raptors. So that's the only adjustment here, but now we have a 32-team league in the NBA. And that will kind of round out the expansion for us in this series, most likely. So we advance, and we'll have the expansion drafts after, or just before, rather, the NBA draft. So come on up here in a moment. We have no picks in this draft, or at least in the first round. And the winner of the first overall pick is going to be the Washington Wizards via the 76ers. You got Magic at 2, Kings at 3. Blue Crabs will have the 5th overall selection. We're going to keep our staff the same as it is, and we'll probably keep everything on scouting for now, for maybe one more year, and then shift that to maybe the team doctor and having more assistants on his team. But for now, we'll keep it as it is. That will take us to the protection period of the expansion draft. So a pretty key moment here. Who do we allow the Blue Crabs to potentially select? We only have I believe 11 players on a roster, and the protection's currently at 10 to hopefully help teams out and protect their actual star players, because if you guys have played 2K in previous years or this year, you know that even with 10 players being protected, some teams let star players go. But all of our young core players are going to be safe, except probably Andre Walsh. We'll probably let him be available, but I highly doubt that Baltimore selects him, so I'm not going to worry about that too much. And we will advance. And now the expansion draft will begin. Now they will take Desmond Bain with the first pick, then Andrew Wiggins, Jake LaRavia, DeAndre Hunter from the Blazers, who just beat us and lost in the finals. Then quickly, Cole Anthony, Quentin Grimes, Dylan Brooks, Ralph Dunn, Nick Richards, Trey Jones, Ousmane Dieng, Chris Middleton, and is that it? They also took Totor Abaja. So, couple veterans, couple of younger players. They'll have actually a pretty decent roster. Desmond Bain actually wasn't he on the Jazz, I think? I think he was, because I was surprised by them making that trade. Let me verify that real quick, because some team made a kind of a wild move to pick up Bain. It was Utah. So now that guard that they drafted will become a starter once again like he was. Let's go double check on who that was, because I'm actually curious and need a refresher on the roster. It wasn't Keontae George, I don't think. It was Andrew Lee, I think, who was playing out of his mind, playing very well, and then kind of got relegated to a bench role. But he still had a fantastic year, 21 points per game in his rookie season. And then you have Wendell Brown, who did not play a single minute for Utah in his first year. I would expect that to change most likely heading into this next season. But they do have Cody Williams, who is going to be on an expiring contract. Same goes for Jackson Larson. So there's potential for Wendell Brown to actually see the court in this next season. Jumping to the draft summary, the Wizards, as expected, drafted Darius Williams, the 6'1" guard, with the first overall pick. And he's got 20 badges coming out of college. He played at Colorado, is the first overall pick, and he is a really good player across the board. Great athlete, likely has high potential, great on defense and offense. He's going to be an immediate game changer for Washington. After him, the Magic took Corey Carter, a 16 badge inside the arc shot creator, 19 years old, out of UNC. More of a project pick than Cody Williams, but still has a lot to like about him. So really good player there. Xavier Green goes third overall, a 6 badge rim attacker out of Ohio State. Really good inside scorer and slasher. Elsewhere, kind of a jack of all trades and master of nothing else. But first 3 picks, pretty quality picks, I will say. And then you had Grant Parks go to the Spurs. The Blue Crabs, with their first pick, they took Tyron Cook, a 6'10 center, paint protecting big man out of UCLA. And we look at him. He's more of a rebounder and defender, not much of an offensively gifted person yet, but has a potential on paper. Ryan Abdul-Kareem was drafted at pick 6 by the Brooklyn Nets. He's only a 72 overall, a versatile defender. And a couple of centers with Javon King, 10 badges. Marquise White, 10 badges to the Lakers and the Suns, respectively. The Hornets took another guard/forward to join LaMelo Ball and Brandon Miller. Trey Mitchell has 4 badges. To round out the top 10, you got Alexander Markovich, a 4-badge rim attacker, 4'3" guard. Any other standouts the rest of the way? 7 badges for Isaac Gonzalez to the Grizzlies. And it seems like those are the best of the bunch. You got 9 badge Ethan Brooks. I gotta change what he looks like immediately, because this was the guy that I mentioned a couple episodes back that kind of looks like he should not have the skin color that he does. And then a couple nice badge numbers here for a couple of players, but that will round out the first round pretty much. So the top talent went pretty early on. Any surprise second round picks? And a really bad pick there at the very end of the draft with like a 51 overall. Nobody that's really blowing me out of the water here. You got 4 badges for Mason Clark, defensive menace. And then 3 badges for Marvin Dennis, a center. That's pretty much it. But in team player options, this will be the final option and final year of the rookie contract for John Cobb. Dennis still has 2 more years on his rookie deal, so we can not worry about that. We still have Andre Walsh. I think he's worth keeping around for 1 more year. As some better center depth, we can focus on guard and perhaps forward off the bench for us. So we'll accept all 3 team options. And we are not going to extend the qualifying offer to Connect and just let him become an unrestricted free agent. And that will also mean that who was it that was also on the last year of his deal? There's somebody else, but I think it was Max Christie who is going to become a free agent as well. So moratorium begins, and you have a couple of big-name free agents in Giannis Antetokounmpo, Devin Booker, Zion is available, John Morant, DeJounte Murray, Pascal Siakam, Stephon Castle is restricted. So is Alex Sarr and Reed Shepard and Risa Sher. So a pretty strong free agent class, no doubt about that. And we have about $35 million in cap hold, which means we probably have about that much in cap room once we get rid of those cap holds. So we have a good amount of money to spend to bring in some top tier bench players, or potentially a starter if you want to think about bringing Young back off the bench. But I do feel like, given the core that we have, you probably want to just bring up some really good guys to come off your bench and play alongside Mark Williams or Wiseman or whoever else is going to be on our bench in year 5. So we are going to look at probably point guard and small forward first. For affordable point guards, we actually have a couple of solid options here. Jalen Hood, Shafino, unrestricted. Daniels, I think, is asking for too much money for us to make an offer his way. He's like 85 overall. Does match our system pretty well, but I think he does not really match the money aspect of things. You got Iancu Emanescu, who's a 4-badge, 3-level scoring playmaker. He does want $15 million, but he did shoot pretty well from the field, had solid assist numbers off the bench in Charlotte for the minutes that he got. You have Jaden Hardy, who is available. Faced him in the second round of the playoffs, but he's had a pretty poor shooting year in Dallas at 40%. Marcus Sasser might be one of the better options. He can score, he can pass, and he's a really good 3-point shooter based on this last season. Good free throw shooter, which I think we do need on this team. He missed a couple of key free throws in Game 6, and he played very well for a 20-minute player off the bench. Could play point guard or shooting guard. I think he's a good option for offense. There's also D'Angelo Russell and Peyton Pritchard, who is coming off kind of a down year in Atlanta. And we had him a couple years ago at the very start of the series, back in years 1 and part of year 2. We gave him away to Atlanta, and now he's coming off perhaps his worst season. There is Tyus Jones, a really just reliable player off the bench, but he is also coming off a pretty down season. So it seems like our best option is probably to go after Marcus Sasser first. At shooting guard, I would love to go after Jared McCain, but I can pretty much bet that he's going to have his offer sheet matched by Philadelphia. You have Cam Christie available. He's only 22 years old, but also Bronny James. What if we brought in LeBron James Jr.? That would be actually something pretty special, I think. Pretty interesting idea here. In LA this past year, about 10 points per game off the bench, passed the ball pretty well. Looks like he was playing 26 off the bench for the most part. 45% from the field, 36-37 from downtown. Only okay to decent at the line, but he's a guy that can really put up some solid numbers in a lot of different categories. I think he's a relatively solid defender. He's got 13 badges and is a good outside defender. So this could be a nice option potentially for us. Could add a new layer to our team. Cam Christie only has 4 badges. Seems to be better on paper offensively than Bronny was. He had 15 points per game for the Clippers and looks like he was probably starting a little bit. He shot very well. 41% and now up to 39% in his career from downtown, and shot 46% from the field in total. Less of a passer, more of a scorer, but also had a bigger role offensively for the Clippers. But he's available, he is unrestricted, and I think he is worth getting over Bronny potentially based on the shooting splits alone. Even though Bronny is a good defender, I mean, I don't think us playing defense on guards was the issue. I think it was more so our low post defense, especially in the latter half of the season. And Christie also is a way better system match for us anyway. So I think I will like him more than Bronny. But neither guy has offers out right now, so we can probably go after one or both and just see who takes the offer. So I think I'll offer Cam Christie first. He is 6'6", has more size than Bronny does, which I think helps on both offense and defense. So we'll look at Christie. We'll offer a deal. He'll get plenty of playing time off the bench. He'll probably play some point guard, some shooting guard, some small forward even as well. He can play all 3 spots, I think. If we're going to improve our bench even further, we also want to get a reliable small forward that can come in for Dylan Young, who I will expect to play more minutes this next season. You got Jackson Larson, who was obviously let go by the Jazz. They also let Cody Williams go, but he is going to be restricted, so he will probably return. And it says Connect is restricted, but he's not. I'm not going to re-sign him. So you've also got Jacoby Walter available, but he's also restricted, so probably going to go with a kind of a lower echelon tiered player. Rui Hachimura available, 6'8", 2 badges. Kelly Oubre, interesting option there. Boris Bowen. Trey Murphy's available, a nice 3-and-D option. More of a match than Hachimura and Bowen. And he's a really good outside defender. Won't take too many shots away from other players. And wow, he shot horribly this last season. No thank you. What about Hachimura? 40%. Kelly Oubre shot 41%. Going to advance. And it looks like Sasser and Christie both agreed to their respective 3-year contracts. We're obviously going to renounce the rights to the guys that we are releasing. And we'll see how much cap room we end up having left. So we now have officially signed Sasser and Christie, and we still have $6 million cap room left to spend. We'll go over all the big signings here soon. Now, Jerry McCain is a complete free agent. That is interesting. So the Sixers just let him go, and he's got offers, but the biggest one coming from the Lakers. That makes way too much sense. So you can't really get him now. We don't have enough money. I do acknowledge that Christie is listed as a guard only and not a small forward, but I think given how the current NBA is, guys can play upwards of 5 spots sometimes, and I think he's a guy that can play 3 of them. So I would expect him to get minutes at small forward regardless if we sign another guy or not. So we're still going to look at a guard/forward, but it has to be on a pretty cheap contract. And looking at these system matches too, There's very few players that are over 3 stars, and the guys who are restricted free agents. So I'm definitely leaning towards bringing in just one more guard and rocking with my original idea. So looking at shooting guards, there's Corey Kispert, who can actually play a small forward. He's a pretty solid catch and shoot player. Hopefully he can outplay Connect if we do bring him in. This last season, he shot only 42% from the field, 37% from downtown. Again, the numbers on paper don't always give you the best idea of how they can play on the courts for the entire year. You got Gary Trent, who is a great fit for us. He was on our team a couple years ago, and he is not the best shooter in the world, but is coming off a pretty solid year behind the arc. He's a good defender, but a bad free throw shooter. I think free throws matter a lot for me. But those are two of the best options for a guy that can play a couple of different spots. There is Dylan Terry, but he barely played this last year. I don't usually take a chance on guys that haven't had that much playing time over the course of a couple seasons. So it's probably going to be Corey Kispert or Gary Trent. Malik Monk had a really bad year from downtown. Kispert is a better free throw shooter. I think a better shooter in general than Gary Trent. They're pretty similar though. I think the free throws are the biggest difference there, but Trent again is a good outside defender. He can really lock people up sometimes and rack up some steals. They're both 29 years old. Kispert is taller. How is he on defense, though? B outside defense. Trent has only C+. That is not what I thought I was going to see. I think I'll lean towards Corey Kispert, kind of a Connect-esque player to bring in, but this will give us just some added depth. And Corey Kispert will accept the 3-year offer as the new catch-and-shoot ace off our bench. And now we have 13 players on roster. We have room to bring in 2 more guys to have full depth at each position. Going to sign Taurean Prince to be a veteran presence off our bench, or really in the reserves. And we also bring in Kobe Brown as well to round out this full roster. Now we'll go see what the big signings were in this offseason. There are still some top players available, but here were the biggest moves in free agency. Milwaukee re-signs Giannis to a 4-year deal, about $61 per year. And Devin Booker is now a member of the Pelicans on a 4-year contract. Zion heads to Golden State. They're going to be a very formidable team. Ja Morant returns to Memphis. DeJounte Murray and Pascal Siakam head to the Clippers. Stephon Castle re-signs with the Spurs. Sarr back with the Wizards. Shepherd back with the Rockets. Risa Sherrod back with the Hawks. So the top 4 available guys off their rookie deals all re-sign with their teams. Sabonis returns to Sacktown on a 4-year contract. Kessler heads to Atlanta. And the Heat bring in Jalen Hood-Schifino. We saw the Lakers pick up Jared McCain. Cody Williams does not return to Utah, so Wendell Brown is going to be in line, I think, for a starting job there after sitting for his entire rookie season. Zach Edey re-signs with Memphis. Ron Holland to the Suns. I think he was with the Pistons prior to that. Bronny James ends up signing with the Suns. So we'll have to keep tabs on him and see if that was the right move to get Cam Christie over him. I think badges are going to be the big difference maker between those two players if Bronny ends up playing better. But I like our signings so far. Capella to the Bulls. Salah returns to Charlotte. There's Cam Christie. Naz Reid to Memphis now. So those were all the big moves. And as always, player progression is a big moment in every offseason for us, especially in these early years. And here we see John Cobb go up to an 87 overall, up by 4. He gains 3 badges, now is called an all-around star. He gets better in inside scoring, inside defense, outside defense, playmaking, rebounding, physicals, and IQ. And the badges that he gained were limitless range, physical finisher, and set shot specialist. Should really help out his shooting splits even more than they already were. So good stuff for him already. And he also has the Alpha Dog personality badge now, which I don't think he had before. So he just earned this as a new personality badge. Now we have him and Colin Moore, I think, both with that badge. That is awesome. But elsewhere, Jarris Walker improves, goes up by 2. I'm not sure if he gained any badges, but gets better in a lot of different areas. Happy with that. Mark Williams pretty much the same. Cam Christie goes up by 4, so this is already kind of paying off. So 6 badges for him, a walking bucket. Should be a really good scoring option for us off of the bench. He's got Deadeye, set shot specialist, shifty shooter, and a couple more. And David Dennis goes up by only 2. I think he gained a couple of badges. Let's go see if he did. He's got a couple of bronze ones. Not sure if these are new or not. I forget what he had when he was drafted. But I think he had double-digit badges. So we'll see if he got any more. But still solid for him. Not as much as I was kind of anticipating. But he still does have the A+ potential on paper. We don't know what his peak age is. So it could be 24, 25. Could be a kind of a gradual increase as his career goes on. Wiseman does improve a little bit. Marcus Sasser, essentially the same player that he was when we signed him. And Kylan Moore, 20 years old, only goes up by 1. And how many badges did he gain? He went up in inside scoring, down in physicals by a little bit, up in IQ by a little bit, potential still A-, but not as much as I thought he would go up by. That is really interesting. But at least it went up. Okay, I just checked, and Dennis did have 13 badges going into year 2, so no increase on those for him. He still has 13. It's still like he was last year, a 2-way level playmaker, but he did go up 5 overalls last year, so I'm not too upset by him only going up by 2 overall points. And for Kylan Moore, he did have 12 last year as well as a rookie. So not much of an increase for him in really any one area, but the potential on paper went from B- to A-. So not sure how much that matters or relates to his actual ceiling, but at least that did go up. Dennis had A potential last year, now has A+ potential. John Cobb had B+ last year, now has A potential. So for all 3, that did go up. And for Dylan Young, he has 10 badges now. And last year, he had 4 as a rookie. So that also is going up. So he gained 6 badges, which should really help him out, hopefully for shooting. Let's go see what those were. So he had 4. I think he had the top 4 here on this list. I think he had Posterizer, Aerial Wizard, Ankle Assassin, and Bailout. But he also now has High Flying Denier, Lightning Launch, Physical Finisher, Pogo Stick, Rebound Chaser, and Set Shot Specialist. So badges matter a lot. Despite him not going up too many overall points, I think he'll still be a better player than he was a year ago. And lastly, Andre Walsh goes up by 3 overalls and also gains 7 badges. He had 0 last year as a rookie. That is a pretty big increase for a player to get. 7 is pretty good for a guy that never played really in the season. So does he deserve some playing time? Maybe. Do we have a logjam at center now? Yes, we do, because I still plan to start Colin Moore at center and have a mixed match of Williams and Wiseman coming off the bench. But Walsh, I think, needs to see some G League playing time for real this year. I think I forgot to send him down last season, so I will do that this year as we start the season. But that will about do it for our progression. What about other teams? Any surprises elsewhere? For the Bulls, Gene T goes up 7 overall points. He's going to be their starting center most likely. They also have Will Morris Sr., who's got 3 overall points. And then the Cavaliers, Herb Hood goes up by 5. Good for him. The Celtics get Jay Stevens up to 84 overall. Still waiting for a couple signings by them, but they have almost no cap room left to spend anyways. The Clippers, not a whole lot to like there. And then for the Grizzlies, up by 4 for Fausto Mané, up by 3 for Richard Holton, but marketing goes down by 3. Small improvements for the Atlanta Hawks, who are going to have a pretty solid roster heading into year 5. The Heat don't get a lot for Leonard Law. And the Hornets had some big improvements. A couple small ones for Miller and Smith, but 3 for Salaun, 5 for Dermonenko, 3 for Rose and Clayton Evans the third. So they're going to be a better team than last year, you'd have to think, based on that alone. The Utah Jazz, how about these guys? +3 for Deion York. Now probably tied for the highest rated player in the NBA. Up by 7 for Andrew Lee. I guess that was what they're kind of banking on by letting Bane go. And Wendell Brown goes up by 3. Will definitely be their starting small forward, I think, over Taylor Hendricks. So we gotta watch the game against them for sure. That could be a really fun matchup. The Kings get +8 for Kibu Miller. He was a great player in his rookie season. Now he goes up by 8 and has 18 badges. Offensive architect. He is going to be awesome. They have a really strong backcourt. +3 for Stefan Kramer for the Knicks. Not really much to like here for the Lakers. McCain, I think, has probably reached his ceiling, it looks like. No increase for him here. But how about the Magic? +6 for Leonard Dennis, the twin of David Dennis. +5 for Gabe Hayes. +5 for Floyd Sampson. Magic really growing as a unit. Not a lot for the Mavericks. +2 for Rob Dillingham. +6 for Zach Webb, that Hall of Fame ceiling power forward. We got a couple for JP Collier and Gerald Temple. Not a whole lot for the Pacers. +5 for Irving Anthony for the Pelicans. He'll probably come off the bench when Ingram recovers from the broken leg. And then +5 for Joey Daniels. And then how about Lou Wong up by 6 for the Pistons? Drafted a couple years ago. Raptors improve. Dusty Beasley up to an 87 overall. The Rockets are going to be probably one of the best teams in the league and the conference. Frank Bauer up by 4, 22 badges. Cam Whitmore +2, Reed Shepherd +3, and just a crazy starting 5 here with this squad. I mean, they're going to have nobody below 85 overall. And Deion Houston's going to be a fantastic backup. And I think once they have to pay both Bauer and Deion Houston, it's going to be tough to keep both guys around because they are already insanely high overalls. We got to watch the game against the Rockets too. +4 for Wilson Lawson, +6 for Edmund Stewart. These guys have been great at drafting talent this series. They're going to have one of the best rosters in the league, pretty much as young as we are, but already better than us in terms of the overalls. So another top team right there. +6 for Dan George for the Spurs. Not too familiar with his game, but big up for him. How did Javon Sims go up by 80? What is that? What is going on here? Was he just drafted? He's coming off. Maybe it's a bug, but up 80 overall. That's crazy. I don't think he actually went up by that much. 71 for Tin Chung Liu as well. What are the Suns cooking up here? I'm confused. Thunder, not a whole lot increasing here. They got 3 for Tyler Ryan. That's pretty much it. We beat them in the play-in tournament, obviously. +4 for Eric Dudley for the Timberwolves. Not much for Portland really at all. Not much to like for the Warriors. Steph Curry goes down by 4. And the Wizards have a really solid developing roster. +3 for Longley, Carlton Carrington, +4 for Henry Terry. And that is pretty much it. +4 for Cam Weber for the Sixers. And then there's us. I think out of all teams, we had one of the best off seasons in terms of player progression. Not a lot, again, for Moore or Young on paper. But I think Cam Christie going up by 4 is big because I think we got him for kind of cheaper than what he would have asked for if he would have known how good he was going to be entering this next season. I think we probably had a top 10, top 7-ish player progression based on the green arrows alone. So can't really complain too much. I think we have a better roster than we had a year ago. So no complaints from me. And now we have the FIBA friendlies, and I do think that this is probably the last year before the FIBA tournaments, which I believe should be next year. But you do have Dion York and Frank Bauer in the starting 5 for Team USA. That's really interesting. I can't really go between these two teams. I'm curious if Cobb made the roster. I doubt he did, but I might want to jump in just to see if he's on the roster. Cobb is on the team, but he is at the very bottom of the roster. I highly doubt he sees the court this year. But next year, perhaps, with one more boost to his overall, maybe, then maybe he could. But I doubt he gets playtime. I will sim a little bit and see what happens, but I just doubt that he actually sees the court. Team USA wins $150 to 120, and it looks like Cobb did not play, so as expected, probably would not get playing time in this year, but next year, perhaps once the actual tournament rolls around, maybe he will. I'm also not sure how this works because they're about to play Canada again, so I really am not sure how they format this in the offseason, but I think they would probably say FIBA tournament if that was this year, so maybe next year is going to be our chance to have some offseason basketball action. Steph Curry plans to retire, is going to have a farewell tour. We'll obviously allow that. And we're going to open year 5 against the LA Lakers. And then we face the Rockets a couple of times in the first week of the season. So, are we in store for a better year than a year ago? Can we finish strong this time and potentially have a top 5, top 4 playoff seed? I think the conference is going to be tough with teams like Utah and Houston, and the Spurs even going to be very good, most likely again this year. So, it's going to be tough, but I think we have the team that can do it. We saw what we could do last year for most of the season. I am going to be sending Andre Walsh to the G League, or maybe I can't. I would like to, but I don't have the option as of right now. But I would if I could. And I am going to fix Ethan Brooks. There he is. Ethan Brooks in Chicago. And for Kylan Moore, he's going to put on 10 pounds in the offseason to bulk up a little bit. And he is going to go from lightweight to defined, I think, makes the most sense. We're going to give Dylan Young a new sleeve on his left shoulder. And because Cobb had a nice increase once again, I am going to change his body shape from defined to ripped, I think. That might be the last change we make to his build. We'll give Cobb a nice parchment paper poem on his chest now, which you can see kind of peek through the top of the V on the jersey neck. Last guy we'll adjust is Dennis. I'll change him from solid to maybe just a slight tick upwards. I'm not even sure what the, like how they determine like what the next level up is from a different body shape, but I think maybe chiseled works for him. But I think that will about do it, folks. I will go through the badge mentorships and I will go through our rotation and kind of figure out what the best method is for us to use for the guys that we have coming off the bench. But one last look at the roster. At point guard, we've got Dennis, Sasser, and Craig Porter Jr. At shooting guard, we have Cobb, Christie, and Corey Kispert, who I expect to probably play small forward behind Dylan Young and in front of Bryce McGowens and Torian Prince. We've got Jarris Walker, Kylan Moore, and Brown at power forward, but I do expect Moore to be the starting center for us. He'll be backed up by Williams, Wiseman, and I will figure out if Walsh can be sent down to the G League as we start the year, but as of right now, I can't do that. But that's your roster. But yeah, that'll about do it, guys, for the 4th offseason of the series, entering year 5. Leave your feedback down below, please, on how many parts you want us to use to go through the regular season, and how do you want those episodes to be formatted? Do you want full games plus a bit extra, like a couple of late games? Do you want only parts of games if they're close late? Just give your thoughts down below. Do you want to see the All-Star break if we have players in there? Leave your feedback down below. I think it matters a lot to me, and I will kind of decide how I want to format those episodes based on what you guys say in the comments. So please comment down below your ideas on that. And like the video, subscribe, leave your thoughts on the signings that we made in this offseason, and leave your expectations down below as well on what you think we can accomplish in our 5th year. I'll see you guys next time as we start our 5th season. Take care and have a great day.